So everyone, welcome to the webinar, Revised Fee Schedule, Eliminating Site Visit Fees. And as a reminder, today's presentation is being recorded. There's a question and answer widget on the council if you can send questions through that tool. The session was going to be made available following today's call on our website. And everyone, again, thank you for attending today's webinar. CAMI is making a major change in our fee schedule, eliminating site visit fees. So I'm Anthony Stanowski, the person on the left on your screen. I'm the president and CEO of CAMI, and I'm joined by Ed Ploha, who is the secretary-treasurer of the CAMI board, and Steve Ullman, who is the chair-elect of CAMI and the director of the School of Business Administration at the University of Miami. Ed and Steve, through the CAMI Finance and Audit Committee, guided this process, working with CAMI staff, and we also used McKinley advisors for support. To start, the board had a very simple objective in this process, and that objective was to develop a fee structure for CAMI accredited programs that evens out the large fluctuations in payments for accreditation that occur because of a site visit. Now, importantly, and I want to reinforce this, the board sought to ensure that the revisions to the fee schedule were overall, across the terms of accreditation, cost neutral to our programs and revenue neutral to CAMI. Again, these changes are cost neutral to the programs across the term of their accreditation and revenue neutral to CAMI. Ed Ploha is going to review the details of the fee schedule, and Steve Ullman will describe scenarios that will show you how the new schedule works with programs in different stages and in the accreditation and reaccreditation process. Following this webinar, all of you are going to receive, or all of you who are CAMI accredited programs will receive a letter detailing how the changes will affect your program next year. And we wanted to get that out to you soon for budgeting purposes. If you have any questions on that letter, that will come to you by email shortly after this webinar, and we're thinking about a half hour after the webinar is over. You should contact Eric Brichto at CAMI at ebrichto@cami.org, ebrichto@cami.org. So the question is, why a change in fee structure, and why did we do this now? Well, we're going to look at first the impact on our programs. What we've noticed is that as site visit fees have increased over the past, they have become nearly twice as high as the annual program fee in that year, and that is in addition to the annual fee for programs. So this created in many of our programs budget issues, and this was particularly sensitive to some programs that were in the middle of a state budget crisis. By dropping site visit fees, we lessen the spotlight on CAMI accreditation in site visit years for these programs, as they don't need to budget differently year after year after year. Now, the only wild card in this is still the site visitor travel expenses. This approach was found to be consistent with most other accreditors that we talk to. Now, what does this mean for CAMI? The impact of CAMI will be to flatten fluctuations in the annual cash flows that make budgeting for our largely fixed cost business models. And also, it could support program retention for programs that suddenly require the need to expand dramatically their budget in site visit years. So with CAMI, this will even out, and we'll see a slide a little bit later, those large fluctuations in cash flows that occur in years when you had a lot of programs that had site visits. And now finally, why do we want to implement in fiscal year 2019? And that's the year beginning July 1st, 2018. The answer is an easy one, and one that benefits our programs. Fiscal 19 would see the largest number of programs to have a site visit. Thus, the change at this time benefits the most number of programs in fiscal 19 and in fiscal 20, which is the second largest number of programs to have a site visit. Let me give you an overview of how this project occurred. The board directed that CAMI contract with McKinley Advisors to help us with our process. Over the past 6 months, McKinley has helped define the project, first discussing the goals with our board members, and next examining in detail how CAMI's payments flow from year to year. Finally, they developed some scenarios and models for us to examine. In October, McKinley presented to the CAMI Finance and Audit Committee, and the plan received approval from the Board of Directors in November. The goal, as we kind of structured this process, was to present the changes in the fee schedule to you, our programs, this month to aid in budgeting for fiscal 2019, beginning July 1st, 2018. At this point, I'm going to ask Ed Ploha, CAMI's Secretary-Treasurer, to walk you through the research findings and the methodological changes in the fee schedule. Ed?
Yes, thanks, Anthony, and good afternoon, all. Well, the first thing that McKinley did was to determine the norm among accreditors for fee structures. In August 2017, they conducted a survey of accreditors that are part of the Association of Specialized and Professional Accreditors, ASPA. In this survey, the accreditors described their fee structures. 17 accreditors responded, or about 35% of all ASPA accreditors. The responding organizations ran the gamut of small to large accreditors. The pie chart slide. What the findings showed was that the majority of organizations interviewed, that is 9 out of 17, have flattened their fee structures and charge the same fee each year, even in site visit years. One organization indicated that they have plans to eliminate site visit fees entirely in the near future. What was interesting was that many of the 7 organizations that did have a site visit fee, in addition to their annual fee, had a relatively small site visit fee. Overall, though, most, and let me repeat that, most organizations had no additional fee in the site visit year, and one, as I said, was planning to eliminate their site visit fee. Also, I'd like to have you note the comments from ACPE, the Accrediting Council for Pharmacy Education, and the ACCE, the American Council for Construction Education, in the boxes to the left and right of the pie chart. Okay, the next slide. Presently, site visit fees make CAMI's revenue spike and then fall annually. New program growth has allowed for an increase in annual program fees. You can see incremental growth since FY 2011 and renewed growth in FY 2016 and FY 2017 as the CAMI brand has become stronger. However, site visit fees jump around year after year. You'll note, for example, in FY 2013, FY 2014, and FY 2015, 3 years with relatively stagnant program growth and annual fee revenue, but total program fees varied by $71,000. I'll just repeat that. A $71,000 fluctuation in total program revenue with relatively no program growth during that time. This was due to the fluctuation in site visit fee revenues. For an organization of CAMI's size, this revenue fluctuation creates significant issues in operations and in planning. So, next slide, new fee structure description. McKinley recommended that we make adjustments in site visit fees, and here are their recommended adjustments. First, reaccreditation site visit fees are now rolled into yearly program fees. This means that modality site visit fees are also rolled into yearly program fees. For new programs only, there is a slightly higher initiation fee charged to cover the initial site visit as well as the 3-year visit. The increase in candidacy yearly fees helps to balance the loss of revenue from new programs. Now, the other side, the consistency side, these are things that did not change. We did not change the billing for site visit delay fees so as to encourage programs to have their site visits in the year that they are scheduled. Programs need to have their site visits when scheduled, or else it throws off the volunteer and staff schedules. While we considered folding in travel costs into the fee structure, McKinley recommended that travel costs be billed directly to programs as they are now, since regional variation in travel costs, if averaged out, would create an unfair impact on certain programs. Okay, next slide. Changes to fees. For currently accredited programs, you see that site visit fees are eliminated. If you need a site visit after 3 years or after 7 years, it does not change your annual fee. Programs that are struggling are not penalized financially. To make up for the lost revenue from not having a site visit fee, annual program fees are increased $1,600 per year. We couldn't eliminate the site visit fee without replacing the revenue. That would result in quick insolvency for CAMI. In addition, modality fees, which were only assessed in the site visit year, are now assessed annually. Okay. Changes to fees. New programs. Once accredited, a new program used to pay a site visit fee after 3 years. We eliminated that fee. We also moved to an initial accreditation fee, or you might say an implementation fee of $8,500 for new programs on their first site visit. This fee increased from $7,200 to make up for lost fees from the no charge for the reaccreditation visit after 3 years. As a reminder, new programs can only receive a 3-year accreditation period. An increase in candidacy yearly fees also helps to underwrite that revenue loss, though not quite all of it. If programs are not accredited after their first try, they pay a subsequent initiation fee that is half, 50%, of their initial initiation fee on subsequent tries for accreditation. Let me repeat that. It could be a little confusing. If a new program is not accredited after a site visit, they will need to pay 50% of the initial accreditation fee, or $4,250 on the subsequent site visit. This is a fairly rare scenario, but it does happen. For programs that were just reaccredited this year, again, just reaccredited programs, they will receive a 50% discount on the increased fee in fiscal year 2019. For example, a program that was reaccredited just this past fall that paid an annual fee of $3,300 plus their site visit fees would have their increase discounted 50% to only $800. So their fairness-adjusted FY 2019 fee would go to $4,100. But in subsequent years, this one-time discount disappears and the fee goes back to the standard fee of $4,900. Okay, I think that covers my portion of it. I'll end here, and I'll turn it over to Steve Ullman, who will describe scenarios that will show you how the new fee schedule works with programs at different stages of accreditation, reaccreditation. Steve?
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it. If my voice breaks up a little bit, my apologies. Today is my heavy teaching day. So, running a program myself, we see how this impacts us directly, and from what we have seen at the board level, this is ultimately something that ultimately benefits, I believe, all. So before I begin, it's important to affirm that these are scenarios, And what you'll find is that Eric Richter, who works in our offices at CAMI and is an instrumental part of CAMI, will be sending to every CAMI program a letter detailing how the fee structure could, and let me repeat, could affect your program specifically for purposes of budgeting. Your final bill amount may change based on your program size as you report in your annual report. But for the most part, the fees as defined in your letter should be pretty close. We wanted to get the letters to you as quick as possible after the board decision to help you with your budgeting. The annual report period has not yet closed. You will be alerted following the close as to the impact on your fees in your invoice. So, with that important caveat, let's just take a look at what the impact would be looking at 4 different types of programs. These scenarios show what the impact would be on these 4 typical CAMI programs. Scenario 1 is a reaccreditation in fiscal year 2019 with a 3-year accreditation. Scenario 2 is a reaccreditation in fiscal year 2019 with a 7-year accreditation. Scenario 3 is a reaccreditation that occurred this year, FY 2018, that is July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018, for 7 years. Scenario 4 is an initial accreditation in 2019 with the reaccreditation site visit scheduled in 3 years. So let's look at each scenario individually. For scenario 1, which is a reaccreditation in fiscal year 2019 with a 3-year accreditation, you can see that this program does actually very well under the new fee schedule. This program would have paid a site visit fee in 2019 and 2022 of $9,600 using the current fee structure. Again, this program would have paid $9,600 twice, once in fiscal year 2019 and again in fiscal year 2022. Their total fees would have been $32,400 from the period fiscal year 2019 through fiscal year 2022. Under the new fee structure, this program would pay only $19,700. Fortunately for CAMI, according to past history, the minority of reaccreditations are for 3 years, with the majority being 7 years. But this scenario does represent that programs that are perhaps struggling won't be doubly penalized by CAMI at the point that they are most struggling for resources for improvement. And it reflects the proactive direction that CAMI has taken over the years. Scenario 2 is a reaccreditation in fiscal year 2019 with a 7-year accreditation. Under this scenario, you can see that this program saves some costs from fiscal year 2019 through fiscal year 2026, the time of their next site visit. This would shave off $6,400 for their total costs, again, ultimately benefiting the program. Scenario 3. Scenario 3 is a reaccreditation that occurred this year, let's say in the fall, maybe September 2017, as a hypothetical. Again, that is FY 2018, this year. This program would have paid an annual site visit fee this year. In fiscal year 2019, they now receive a fairness discount off their fee increase, which is shown as $800, instead of the $1,600 increase. If you look at the table, you'll see the blue bracket that is highlighted on the right. Their fiscal year 2019 total annual fee would be $4,100. In subsequent years, this fee goes to $4,900. Their total costs across the period 2018 through 2025 are close under the current and the revised structure, but note that if this program had a 3-year reaccreditation, they would have saved a lot. Finally, Scenario 4. Scenario 4 is an initial accreditation in FY 2019. Let's say this is hypothetically September 2018 to make this clear. A fiscal year 2019 initial accreditation with a reaccreditation site visit scheduled in 3 years. Note how in fiscal year 2019 this program does not have a site visit fee, but it does have a one-time implementation fee of $8,500. However, overall this program still saves nearly $2,000. The Programs that are going for accreditation in fiscal year 2019 benefit as this is phased in. Make up for this shortfall in future years, candidacy fees were increased by $700 per year, which helps CAMI recoup these costs for programs undergoing accreditation in fiscal 2020 and beyond. I know that's a lot in terms of what we just ran through. And your program may have some special modalities, different modalities, simultaneous modalities, or maybe larger than what is shown here, or maybe different in terms of the year for reaccreditation that was not shown here. Eric Brito will be distributing to each program director their expected fee schedule for FY 2019, effective July 1st, 2018. And let me repeat that the new fee schedule begins July 1st, 2018. And again, as I mentioned earlier, your annual report statistics may alter your final invoice amount. I look forward to our own letter that we will be receiving. Anthony, are you ready to take any questions from attendees?
We are. Thank you, Steve. And I've noticed that there have been some questions that have come up, and I know I've seen that Eric addressed some of the questions directly with people, but I think they might be also good to kind of go through and just kind of clarify some points, because some other folks might be having some of these issues. So one of the questions was, are all years in these slides fiscal year? And yes, all the years in the slides are fiscal year, and the fiscal year does start July 1st, 2018. So that would be fiscal 19, and it starts July 1st, 2018. And then the next question, I'm going to send it over to Eric, and I know you responded to someone about it, but what is a modality fee? Eric?
Hi, everyone. So some programs are more complicated than others and have executive tracks and residential tracks, online tracks. So for those programs that offer more than one track, they get the modality fee.
Okay. And
if I may interrupt here just very briefly, I would ask you to look on the CAMI website under University Programs, where it says Accreditation Schedule of Fees. I think it's listed nicely there, and there are some descriptors. So if you haven't checked the website, it's CAMI website under University Programs, and then scroll down to Accreditation Schedule of Fees. Thanks.
One of the questions is, did we talk to any program directors regarding the changes in the fee schedule? And what I'd like to say is that these changes to the fee schedule really kind of came about when I began, if you would, my listening tour as a new CEO. It was one of the program directors that I had met in, let me just kind of say, in the Chicago area, who in Illinois was having a lot of budget issues. And what the program director was describing for me, it was the burden of trying to budget for a site visit fee, and particularly it particularly was a problem because that particular program was reaccredited for only a 3-year period. So they had to budget for a large site visit fee 3 years ago, and then they also needed to budget for another site visit fee this year, and that particular problem was troublesome, and that got me to ask some questions to folks at ASPA about what are some of the approaches that people do around that particular problem. And then we began the discussions with McKinley that kind of led into it. As all of you know, several program directors sit on the CAMI board and help kind of guide this process. And in addition, in a more informal sense, I talked to several program directors about the approach as well. So yes, the program directors were consulted. Are there other questions?
Yes, we got a question from Michael Thompson at UNC Charlotte asking, how this is mostly cost neutral, where the annual fee is $7,200 annualized over 7 years.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to read the rest of it. The answer is the reaccreditation, the current reaccreditation fee for an accredited program is $9,600 plus your annual fee, which ranges from, for most programs, $3,300 or $3,600, depending on size.
And we also built in a very small factor of the percent of programs that have a 3-year accreditation versus a 7-year accreditation, and factored that in as well. And that's all the work that McKinley did on it. Again, this is over a 7-year period for a program, revenue neutral or cost neutral to you. For CAMI across the same period of time, it's revenue neutral to us. If you were to look at next year, our CAMI's revenues actually go down by somewhere around $30,000 over what would be expected under the old fee structure by implementing this. And again, in 2020, fiscal 2020, our revenue actually is less than what would have been expected, given these 2 high years of a lot of site visits. Okay, well, we're now at 3:30, and we'd really like to keep this short, knowing that everyone's got a lot of work to do with the end of the semester. If there's other questions, please email Eric or I, and we'll get back to you with the answers. And also, again, your reports probably should be coming, Eric, within an hour?
Yes, at 4:30.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you, Anthony.